This is Unstructured.
Hey everybody, I'm going to do another solo addendum here. This time I'm changing it up a little bit. I'm actually doing it while I drive home, which is perfect. Friday is always a traffic jam day, and I get to spend a lot of time in traffic. I live on the south side of Hampton Roads. I'm sorry, actually I live on the other side. I work on the south side in Hampton Roads, and I have to drive up to the peninsula every day. And of course on Fridays, before the bridge tunnel, it's a big parking lot. Now, I have the air conditioning running, and hopefully the fan doesn't get too obnoxious, but honestly, it's freaking hot here, and I would die. So, I've got to work with it. Now, one thing that happened last time I recorded this solo episode is, well, I didn't record it the first time. I managed to look down, thinking that I had been talking for about 30 plus minutes, only to find that, genius that I am, I had not hit the record button. So, in my frazzlement, I hit it again, started over, and started to just record. I didn't talk about my trip to Canada, which is kind of a big deal to me. It was my 20th anniversary, and I wanted to go see Niagara Falls, etc. Unfortunately, the trip, I don't know what it was. The trip had some issues on it. A lot of it was great, but then there were issues there. Like when we arrived, our bag didn't come. We had one bag, but the one with our clothing in it, of course, that wasn't there at the airport, and we had to leave without it and wait for it to come the next day with no clothes, not very happy wife. We looked kind of like traveling bums in Canada. Well, it did actually come the next day. Came to find out that our prudency, which is we have a caution type of tape on the handle of the bag, had caught in the top of the conveyor belt, and the bag did not come down in the baggage claim area. So, oddly enough, the bag, in fact, was there the whole time. We just were not united to the bag. Well, we went on to the trip, and next day we went to Niagara Falls, and that actually went really well. We took a bus trip over there, visited a winery, got to the falls, and took a chance, and I actually sprang to fly in the helicopter above the falls, and we also took the boat. So that was really kind of a banner day. I don't know if we'll ever get back again. So having a once-of-a-lifetime experience, we get to see the Niagara Falls from air, land, and sea, and got completely soaking wet. But it was definitely a fun day. The rest of the trip went pretty well until our anniversary dinner. Right before our anniversary dinner, we had a cab mix-up. We called a cab, and then there was another cab, and we got in the wrong cab. He acted confused. So I got out and got back into the second cab, and we headed to the restaurant. After we got out, went to the restaurant, I looked, hit my pockets up, felt around. My iPhone was gone. I left it in the cab. So I called the cab company, and they, of course, were going to get a hold of the driver and make sure the driver looked for not the cab. Hopefully he knew where the cab was. He's probably driving it. He would look for the phone, and they would contact me. And then my wife, who was calm and not flipping out like me, said, well, why don't you call it using my phone? And I called it, and somebody answered, and it was Tony. And Tony acted confused, and I said, Tony, are you a cab driver? And Tony said, no, I just have this phone. And I said, this phone was left in the cab. I need to get this phone back. And he said, where are you? And I told him where I was, and he said, I'll get it to you in 90 minutes. And I wasn't thinking, and just was so flustered. And I go in, I sit down, I'm trying to have dinner. It's a really nice restaurant. And my wife is saying, he's going to bring it to you in 90 minutes? Are you sure? And so I realized that maybe I'm being scammed. So I went to find my iPhone on her iPhone, looked it up, saw that it was somewhere on the other side of town. I don't know Toronto that well, and hers is an iPhone 5. It's really small, and I couldn't see that well on the map. And then I noticed that the last time was 5 minutes before. And then I noticed it was 10 minutes before because, yes, I obsessively kept checking it. And I realized that, nope, that phone isn't coming to me in 90 minutes. It's gone. Now, at first I thought, hey, there's no point in them stealing it because it's tied to Apple. And if they try to turn it on and activate it, it's going to be tied to my account and they can't get anything. And then I thought a little further and realized that, oh, wait, the glass backing on an iPhone 8 is $200. The screen is probably $100 and something. The battery is another $100 and something. The storage, who knows how much that is. And I realized that, great, that iPhone is probably being parted out on one of the little cell phone shops that I saw when I was walking around in Toronto. So good times. I'm out the iPhone. And worse off, I'm having kind of a shitty time with dinner because I'm upset about this. And I tried not to be upset. Tried to handle it, and get over it and just enjoy the moment. But I was keyed up emotionally, and it's really hard to turn something off once it's affecting you. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Now, my wife was wonderful. She was terribly understanding, but the whole experience was very, very frustrating. And I feel kind of guilty about how I acted. Ironically, I interviewed Daniel Geffen on Tuesday, and his phone had also been stolen recently. I don't think it was the same day, but it was pretty close, probably within a week. And he had a much more philosophical view on things, and maybe that's because he's a wiser man who was once a rabbi. But we discussed that, and I talked about how his response was, if your life is that bad that you need to steal a phone in order to get food or try to get by or even to pay for your drug habit, God bless. And I feel good that I can afford another phone. Honestly, I still don't feel quite that charitable. I could afford another phone, but not easily. It definitely hurt. But I did talk to him about that and how he's kind of a better person than I am with that kind of attitude. And he pointed out something that I think was pretty wise, that he was not going to let the phone situation eat at him and ruin his life. He needed to move forward. He needed to get over it. It wasn't necessarily easy, and it wasn't completely for the others. It was for him to get by. So I really did like that wisdom that he shared. It's a really good episode all around. I hope you guys check it out. He's a good guy, great energy, has an awesome story about how he essentially was jobless and everything else, had to create his own business, and how he worked to create his own business and almost spun himself into at least semi-retirement at age 30-something. With me being a 47, I'm terribly jealous of that. Now, moving back to the trip, we came back, and of course, on the way back, the first flight, the more comfortable one with the bigger plane, was fine. And it went nice and easy, and it was a very polite staff, et cetera, et cetera. And then we got on the second plane, which is out of LaGuardia to Norfolk. The 40-minute flight, they said, and that turned into a 2-hour flight. Because for whatever reason, they couldn't fly at altitude. They had to fly low, and it took forever. Not only that, they couldn't serve any kind of water or anything else because nobody was allowed to get up, and everybody had to be buckled up the whole time. So that was kind of the welcome home. Then after I got home, I needed to get a new iPhone. Good times. I go to Best Buy. Fortunately, I had a birthday coupon, so it knocked like $100 off or something. Got the phone, took it to AT&T. AT&T said, yeah, it's not booting up. Put it on the charger. It wasn't booting up. Okay, fine. Took the SIM, took the phone home, and let it charge for a full hour. I studied. I went to Apple and looked it all up, and they said, could be lost its charge, need a full hour, etc. Never booted, nothing. Got to trouble all the way back to Best Buy, hand the phone back to them. They confirmed, nope, can't even do a master reset, completely dead as a doornail. Got another phone. Fortunately, that one finally booted up. Now, all this is kind of causing stress, too, because unfortunately, with my current job, I can't just go on vacation, leave town, and do nothing. I'm having to log into work, etc. And I get my work email on my phone, and I also use my phone using SMS and getting tokens and things like that sent to it so I can log in remotely, securely. Well, without the phone, I couldn't remote in securely. Without the phone, I couldn't get any email. So I was flying blind. I handled the financial systems and just kind of praying that nothing breaks. Fortunately, nothing did, and I got to be back to work on my vacation in good time. But all this is kind of made me wonder a couple things. Overall, most things were good on the vacation. I had a wonderful time at Niagara. I got to spend great time with my wife and seeing the museum in Toronto and things like that. But for some reason, I just kind of feel bummed out about the vacation. I sort of have this bitter, crappy feeling toward it, and I don't know why. I don't know why I feel that way, and I know I need to reset my mode. And my wife feels a little bit that way too, and it really bothers me because it was our 20th anniversary, and that's 20 years. I put a little time into this, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe I had it built up to where it was supposed to be the perfect encounter and the perfect thing, and it wasn't because of circumstances. Hard to know. But there we are. Now, moving forward, I got some questions from people, which is awesome. I wasn't sure if I was going to, and thank God some people came through. Ryan Morris, Luke Kaler, Mark Volk, and the illustrious Dustin Cubitt all gave me some questions, and you guys are lifesavers. I love getting questions so I can answer them and maybe, talk about the shows and, do my best answering the questions. Some of them are kind of tough. I'll start off with something easy that came out of the side. And Mark Volk had actually sent a movie preview to ask a rather deep philosophical question about whether I speak to my own ego, to learn about myself, etc. And the clip was from, I believe it's Revolver. It was a Guy Ritchie movie, and Luke Kaler took the chance to say, what's a better Guy Ritchie movie, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch? Now, being the coward I am, I'm going to say it's been a long time since I've seen both of them, so I can tell you what a bad movie is, and that was King Arthur. That was not a good Guy Ritchie movie. Those other two I remember being very good. So I'm going to cop out and say that I don't know which one is better, but King Arthur was definitely worse. Much worse. Now, as far as Mark's question, that one is it was a little more confusing for me because I'm a little slow and have to think about these things. And I will read his explanation he gave me to try to help clarify it. That is, what he would ideally want from my questions would be for you to ask yourself why or what you fear, hate, love, and why, and trying to commune with that part of you using your consciousness and see if it says anything back, kind of like in the video clip. In the movie, the protagonist is claustrophobic and purposefully facing his fear so he can listen to this other side. Honestly, I don't know that I do anything that conscious. I'm not that deep. I really wish I was. Part of the reason I do the show is so I can really interview other people who I really admire so much, and I can learn from them and maybe get some depth out of myself. Do I question myself? Yeah, I do, but I don't necessarily talk to myself and question it. Speaking into this microphone right now is about as close as I get to talking to myself. Now, I will say I listen to a ton of podcasts, and when I hear somebody really wise on a podcast asking questions or making statements about what people do and things like that, I then may hear that question and think to myself, do I do that? And determine whether I do or I don't, or maybe an action or a thought pattern I have, I will find matches that, and we'll try to explore why I feel and things like that. But it's not a conscious conversation or script. It's kind of a meandering mulling going on, if that makes any sense. Now, on to an easier question for me. Do I think anyone will ever break the 2-hour barrier in a marathon? And the question is a real breaking two, not a project like Nike had last summer. And that one I'm not completely sure on, because I've read a couple books on it. Phil Maffetone had a book on it, and I believe I read one other about it. Now, I do think that we're physically capable, not we as in all of us, but I think some of the top runners in the world, specifically the Kenyans and some of the Ethiopians, perhaps could do it now if they pushed it. But I don't know that the incentives are lined up correctly for it. Realistically, they're better off breaking the world record and then breaking it again and then breaking it again and collecting the money and the bonuses, etc. for that, rather than just going flat out for the sub 2 hour, because then they would just do that. It's one that's done. They're not getting the money. And now I don't know if that's a completely, conscious thing, but a winning for these guys, especially in Africa. I mean, if they get a couple $100,000 out of a race, which they will if they break the world record, they're set for years. I mean, it buys their entire farm. It's multi-years of salary. I mean, they are set for life. It is a big deal. And really, the incentive is for them, if they break the world record by like 5 seconds, right now I think it's at like 2:02:50 something. It may be lower. I don't remember exactly, but let's say it's 2:02:50, and they break it and say 2:02:45, and then break it again 2:02:43 the next year. They're collecting, $500,000 in that, not to mention maybe other endorsements and things. I honestly kind of agree with Phil Maffetone that there would have to be a genuine purse on it, where everyone who breaks it gets like $1 million. So you would have to throw money at it. So they would be set for life, and they would all have the incentive to break it. Like if you win, but you don't break 2 hours, you get nothing. That kind of thing. But if you break 2 hours, no matter if you're first, second, or third, you get $1 million. That is going to give that edge and incentive for, multiple people to go for it and to try it. He also brought up other factors. Now, the Nike bit was kind of using a little bit of that, using a racing track with a much wider, an auto racing track has a wider band around it, because that would be the ideal, is to have like a track that's maybe a mile around if possible. So they can have a perfect flat, type of course. Obviously you don't want any kind of wind or anything else. It cannot be a net downhill, or it would not account for a world record. So you want to set up the conditions to be exact. Now, I understand what Ryan is asking about, not doing a breaking two. The big issue with breaking two is that you had a car in front of them. So you have the runners that are drafting off of a freaking car. However, it could be useful to use that kind of mechanism to just flat out get under 2 hours. Even though it won't count as a record, it still shows the capability of the human body that, yeah, we're about right there. So I'm not going to say that's a completely wasted effort or time. Okay. Now, the next question is, okay, this is based off of a post that I shared comparing the differences between American runners and African runners specifically, and the different training methodologies. And Drew Glebe, I believe it was, responded to it. Sorry I didn't shout you out earlier, Drew. And he asked, in my opinion, is it better to flip it instead of what we have a tendency to do as Americans? Is we're so set on we're going for an 8-mile run that if we realize when we get back to the parking lot that we're at like 7.95 miles, that we'll run around the parking lot, in a shuffle jog, whatever, just to make sure that our GPS ticks over, even though it's really a silly exercise. Your body does not understand what a mile is. That's just ridiculous. It's just something there. And we may have already run it because the GPSs aren't necessarily accurate. And we have things like tangents, like if we're running back and forth or on the outside of a road versus the inside of the road, we're likely putting a little bit more distance on anyway. And the Africans, on the other hand, they have a tendency to say, okay, my workout is not about the distance of running 8 miles at this pace. They're saying my workout is about running this pace. And that's the part I forgot, is if we are tired as Americans, rather than running the 8 miles at that pace, we may run the 8 miles at a slightly, less aggressive pace. Like maybe we'll go a little bit slower, but make sure we get that 8 miles in. Africans, on the other hand, tend to say, I am going to be running at this particular pace, and if I don't make it 8 miles, it doesn't matter. I will run as far as I can at that pace until I just flat out can't run anymore. So it's a completely different philosophy and a reversal. And some could make the argument, and I believe the original article kind of was, is that our fixation on the distance may lead to wasted effort, whereas the Africans focus on the quality of the workout, make sure that their body is getting the feeling and the effort at that pace, and the training may be better. Now, the question, which I'm finally getting back around to, is it good doing what we do essentially in the American style, or is it in fact better if we flip it and say, hey, no, run that pace as aggressively as we can and go as far as we can? I would say both have their place. And again, that might sound like a cop-out, but I'm really thinking in terms of like the 80-20 rule, because there's other factors with the Africans too. One is the Africans, when they run slow, they run slow. Easy to them is easy. When they do it, they actually look like they're just jogging. Their pace is so slow in comparison to what they are racing. And we here are terrible at that. We have a tendency to run easy hard. Now, by easy hard, it's hard to explain, but running truly easy means that we're breathing so easily that we can have a nice conversation, chat away with a friend, and we may be well under our normal pace. It could be, let's say our average pace is a 7-minute mile. We may be running at 9:30, 10 minutes, 10:30 a mile. Africans, they may run their workout pace may be a 5:30, and they may be jogging at a 9-minute pace, which is just insane. But when they are running easy, they are running easy. We have a problem with that, and we have this thought that, okay, well, we're not running at our full race pace, but we can't run that slow. So we're always, I don't know, we get a little ego tripped up here. So I guess my issue with this is that the Africans, because they do easy when they're supposed to do easy, their focus of we are running at this pace, at this speed, as far as we can, is good, because that is following the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, run really easy, but 20% of the time, run really focused. Run at your proper pace. So you have an easy, hard flip. Therefore, I think the best approach is when you're planning a quality workout, and by quality, I mean a race pace workout or a quicker workout or tempo, threshold. These are all different kinds for those who aren't runners and are already tuning out. Run them as well as you can, as clean as you can. And instead of going 3/4 of the speed or the effort so you can complete the entire time, do what the Africans do, focus on the quality. So for example, if you're going to do intervals of 5, say 5 intervals of 5 minutes each, and you're not up for it, only do 4. Well, make sure you do it at the proper level. You will get a more fulfilling workout. And then on the flip side of it, when you're running easy, go ahead and pad. Go ahead and shuffle and grab that little extra distance. It won't hurt you. Matter of fact, grab a little bit more. But just make sure it's easy. Let that start building up your endurance. Now, moving on to the next question. This one's from Dustin, and I could just see him kind of chuckling to himself when he came up with it. When you hear the word postmodernism, what are your first thoughts? Ugh. My first thoughts are, ugh. I really, really don't like getting into postmodernism because, A, I haven't read a bunch of it. And, actually, I will say I haven't read any of it. I just have been exposed, I guess you could say, to people arguing about it and people stating what it is or what it isn't and how it affects things. And honestly, some of the people who are proponents of it, I kind of find to be just sort of obnoxious. I'm not going to say that people who are against it can't be obnoxious too, but the whole subject just doesn't seem to really go anywhere and just seems to be a intellectual battle. I don't know. Next question. What was my favorite school subject in high school? I would say being on the debate team, closely followed with journalism and drama, but I wasn't good in drama. I never made it to the cool kids club. One of my friends who I re-met up with, he managed to make it all the way in there, and he actually is back home in Tucson performing all the time in all kinds of plays. His name's Christopher Youngren, and I always remember admiring his talent so much because he was just an incredible actor. I did not have the skills. Now with debate, I did really well. It came very comfortably to me. right out the gate. I enjoyed it. I love libraries. I love research. I married a librarian, so I learned early, go to the library to find the things that mean everything in your life. And I did well with it. Sadly, my debate career got cut short because I got, shall we say, caught with possession of marijuana on a high school campus. And that ended my debate career, my drama career, and pretty much anything else extracurricular in this school, and almost probably had me losing a couple pounds of flesh too. But fortunately, I managed to stay out of the radar of a very angry parent. Last, what is my favorite video game? I'd say it's a toss-up between Zelda's, and don't ask me which one, because I like several of them. And I really, really love the original Dragon Age. That was a game that I actually played all the way through. I finished it and enjoyed it. I like the long, action, adventure, role-playing type games. Problem is I don't have time to play them. So what happens is I'll spend like one day over a holiday break, and that'll be like my whole video game day, and I'll intend to continue on and maybe finish a game, but usually I get one day in of playing the games, and that's the end. I move on to something else. Now, that wraps up the Q&A, and next week, I'm actually going to be at Podcast Movement 2018. I'm pretty excited to go there. I'll be meeting some of the past guests there, like Robert Forto, who's a musher, Susie Rosenstein, Jill Angie, future guests I will also be meeting there. And honestly, I'm really excited because I'm still very new at this podcasting thing, and I will be meeting with really, really awesome people who are movers and shakers in the field. So hopefully I'll get to bring something back, and my skills I hope to keep improving and make the show better, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you much.
Mr. Hayes' office, how may I help you?
Andrea, it's Marilyn over at Kennedy Parker Construction.
Hello, Marilyn. Would you like me to connect Mr. Parker to Mr.
A fish
Hayes?
surrounded by sharks. A secretary cursed by desire and ambition. Introducing The Diarist by Donna Barrow Green. The Diarist, an addictive psychological thriller, satirical, suspenseful, and full of twists. Available on iTunes or anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I've hurt your feelings. Or if something I've said has led you to believe I think you're incompetent.
It's just been so long since you've given me any encouragements or compliments on my...
Andrea, I do notice you. I like that blouse on you very much. You look very pretty just as you are right now.
Oh, well,
It's very pretty on you.
Thank you.
What sort of fabric is it?
It's silk?
It's lovely. You have excellent taste in clothes. I notice. Would you mind removing your cardigan?
My sweater?
Yes, so I can see the blouse in its entirety.
Why?
I like it very much. You see, I do notice you. You know that, don't you? I don't have to tell you I notice these things. You know when I like something, don't you?
I don't know. I repeated his words in my mind. I notice you. That was it, wasn't it? I wanted someone to notice me. Not Andrea the daughter, the wife, the secretary. Not even Andrea the artist or ad girl. I wanted someone, anyone, to see me. More than anything, it was Richard. Please don't think unkind of me, dear reader.
Now, tonight's adventure into the unknown.
Shut up and sit down.
Hey, it's Sarge
And Frenzy.
from the Sarge Approved Podcast. If you're not familiar, the Sarge Approved Podcast has a guest every episode featuring people like actors,
Comedians.
survival experts,
Authors.
martial arts experts.
Basically a whole gamut of badass people.
Yes. And you can check out all our episodes on all the podcast platforms, iTunes,
Spreaker.
Stitcher,
Google Play Music.
iHeartRadio. And
yeah.
you can check us out on all our social media, Facebook.
Instagram, Twitter, all the things.
It's all at Sarge Approved.
Yep.
Check it out, and we hope you enjoy it.
Bye.